The Galactic Council had always prided itself on maintaining order across the universe, keeping track of all the known planets and species. As one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, it was their job to monitor every corner of the cosmos. However, for centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a blip on their radar. It had been labeled as a low threat by every civilization that came across it. To the Council, Earth seemed unremarkable, a backwater planet filled with primitive creatures. But that was all about to change. One quiet evening in the archives of the Galactic Council, a new discovery was made. A hidden section of ancient records was uncovered, a dusty file tucked away behind layers of old reports. It had been overlooked for ages, forgotten by even the most seasoned archivists. As the Council's elite archivist, Zarnak, carefully examined the documents, his eyes widened. These records were different from the others. They were older, far older, dating back to the early days of the Galactic Council itself. The file was labeled Earth. Intrigued, Zarnak began to read. What he found shocked him. Earth had been labeled as a low threat from the very beginning, but there were strange inconsistencies in the reports. The first records had come from alien explorers who had arrived on Earth centuries ago. They had expected to find a highly advanced civilization, one that could potentially challenge the balance of power in the galaxy. But what they found was far from what they expected. Instead of discovering a highly developed species with the potential to rival the great powers of the galaxy, the explorers found humans living in caves, using primitive tools, and engaged in constant wars with one another. For the aliens, this was a huge disappointment. They had expected a rich and powerful world, one that could be easily conquered and brought into the galactic fold. But Earth was different. The aliens quickly dismissed the humans as a species too divided, too distracted by their own internal struggles to ever pose a real threat. So, Earth was placed on the low threat list, with no further interest shown by the higher powers of the galaxy. For centuries, Earth's status remained unchanged, and the planet was left to develop in isolation. But now, after so many years, Zarnak was beginning to wonder if there was more to Earth's history than anyone had realized. As he read through the archives, he saw the same pattern repeating itself. Each report dismissed Earth as a low-level threat, never fully exploring the potential of the human species. There was something strange about this. Earth's status was never upgraded or reevaluated, even as it continued to develop. Why had the Council stopped paying attention to Earth? What had they missed? Zarnak couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden. He dug deeper into the archives, tracing back to the very first alien visitors to Earth. These explorers, despite their initial disappointment, had never reported back to their superiors. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. There were no further communications, no updates on the status of the planet. The more Zarnak read, the more questions he had. What had truly happened on Earth? Was there more to the story that had never been told? As he continued his investigation, he uncovered something even more startling. In a secluded part of the archives, he found a set of encrypted files, locked away for centuries. The encryption was complex, but Zarnak was determined to unlock its secrets. Hours passed as he worked tirelessly to break the code, his mind racing with possibilities. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the encryption cracked. The files revealed a startling truth. There were records of a secret meeting held by the leaders of the Galactic Council, just after the first alien explorers had returned from Earth. The meeting was brief, but the contents were explosive. The Council had debated the future of Earth, and there were disagreements among the members. Some argued that Earth should be left alone, that the humans were too insignificant to be a concern. But others believed that Earth's potential was much greater than anyone had realized. They feared that, if left unchecked, Earth could one day become a force to be reckoned with. The debate had been heated, but in the end, the decision was made to keep Earth's status as low threat. It was a deliberate choice, made to keep the planet isolated and uninvolved in galactic affairs. Earth's history was being hidden, its true potential kept under wraps. Zarnak was stunned. The records were clear. Earth was never truly seen as weak. It had simply been controlled, kept in the dark, by those who feared what it could one day become. As Zarnak absorbed this new information, he realized something even more unsettling. If the humans were ever to discover this truth, the entire balance of the galaxy could be at risk. The Council had deliberately kept Earth in the dark, but now, as Earth's technology advanced, it seemed inevitable that the humans would one day learn the truth. What would happen then? Would the humans rise to challenge the galactic powers, or had they already begun to awaken something far more powerful than anyone could imagine? Zarnak sat back in his chair, his mind racing with the implications of what he had uncovered. The truth about Earth had been hidden for too long, and now it seemed that the consequences of that secret could no longer be ignored. Something was stirring on Earth, and it was only a matter of time before the galaxy would have to face the truth about humanity. The first encounter between Earth and the alien explorers had been nothing like what the visitors had expected. Their ships had arrived on Earth over 1,000 years ago, and they came with great anticipation. These beings were from a powerful civilization, one that had traveled across many star systems and encountered countless worlds. They had seen advanced species with towering cities and vast technologies, civilizations that commanded respect across the galaxy. But Earth was different. When the explorers descended upon Earth, they expected to find a race of beings who were far beyond anything they had encountered before. They imagined humans to be an advanced species, one capable of intelligent communication and sophisticated technology. But as their ships touched down in the fields of what we now call ancient civilizations, they were met with nothing but confusion. Instead of advanced technology and gleaming cities, they found humans living in caves and small settlements, struggling to survive. The people they encountered were primitive, using crude stone tools and living in fear of the wild animals around them. They had no grand cities, no advanced machines, and no visible understanding of the universe beyond their own planet. The explorers could hardly believe their eyes. They had come expecting to meet a proud, strong species, but what they found were people still in the grips of survival, fighting their own wars and trying to overcome their basic instincts. At first, the aliens saw this as an easy opportunity. They believed that conquering Earth would be a quick and effortless task. They thought they could take control of the planet, exploiting its resources and bringing its people under their rule. But something strange happened. The aliens tried to communicate with the humans, but their primitive nature made it difficult. There was no shared language, no mutual understanding. The humans, in their simple and violent ways, had no interest in anything beyond their immediate needs and struggles. Over time, the alien explorers began to understand that Earth wasn't the advanced world they had hoped for. It was a planet filled with a species too divided to be a serious threat. The humans were so wrapped up in their internal conflicts, fighting wars and struggling to survive, that they hardly noticed the visitors from another world. The aliens had expected a world of great power, but all they saw was a species struggling to grow beyond its tribal nature. Despite their initial hopes, the aliens left Earth with little fanfare. They didn't report back to their superiors immediately, choosing instead to leave the planet behind. There was no mention of Earth's potential in the reports they filed. No one thought much of it. After all, Earth seemed inconsequential in the grand scale of the galaxy. It had no spacefaring civilization, no weapons of mass destruction, and no sign of any real progress in its development. The conclusion was simple. Earth was not a threat. Back in the Galactic Council's archives, the story of Earth's first encounter was reduced to a few lines in a forgotten document. The Council had moved on to focus on other worlds, other species that posed a greater challenge. Earth was just one of many planets, left behind and ignored. Over time, this one brief encounter became a myth, a passing story among the Council members. Earth's status as low threat was reaffirmed again and again, until it became an unquestioned truth. However, as time passed, a small group of alien researchers began to question the accuracy of the reports. Something didn't add up. Earth was still considered insignificant, but the alien explorers had never fully explored the possibility of what humans could become. The Council had dismissed the planet too easily, and the researchers suspected they were overlooking something important. Had the Earth's potential truly been understood? As more time passed, humans continued their slow and steady development. From primitive tribes to early civilizations, Earth's inhabitants slowly advanced, mastering tools, building cities, and starting to explore the stars. But even as they took their first steps into space, the rest of the galaxy had long forgotten about Earth, continuing with their own battles and struggles. What the aliens didn't realize was that Earth was more resilient than they had ever imagined. Over the centuries, the humans had learned, adapted, and survived. Though their progress was slow, it was steady, and with each new generation, they became more capable, more aware of the universe around them. Still, the Galactic Council continued to ignore them. Earth was just one of billions of planets, and the rest of the galaxy had no reason to fear it. But as the humans began to reach beyond their world, things started to change. The first alien transmissions from Earth were sent out into the galaxy. They were small, unassuming signals at first, unnoticed by most. But over time, the humans began to send more complex messages. They were learning, they were growing, and they had begun to reach out, hoping to make contact with other species, hoping to connect with the galaxy they had never known. What the Council had failed to realize was that Earth was not a planet to be dismissed. It was a world with untapped potential, a world that had quietly begun to change. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for what was about to come. Would the humans be able to awaken their true power and challenge the status quo? Or had the galaxy's powers been right to dismiss them as a low threat for so long? As the research into Earth's past continued, a troubling thought began to form in the minds of the alien investigators. Had they made a mistake in underestimating Earth? Would they soon have to confront the possibility that the humans had always been more than what they appeared? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer the insignificant planet the galaxy had once thought it to be. The Galactic Council had long regarded Earth as an unimportant, low-level planet. The events of the first encounter with the humans were brushed aside, and the planet was left to develop in isolation. But now, something was beginning to stir. As the Council continued to monitor the galaxy, a small faction of aliens started to notice odd patterns emerging from Earth. It was subtle at first, small shifts in technology, strange bursts of energy. But these events couldn't be ignored. Earth was changing, and it was changing faster than anyone had anticipated. Among the alien researchers was Trezor, a young but brilliant scientist who had always been fascinated by the potential of lesser-known worlds. Unlike his colleagues, Trezor had never fully accepted the low-threat status given to Earth. He believed that there was something more to the planet, something that had been overlooked by the rest of the galaxy. He had spent years studying Earth's history, and what he found left him with more questions than answers. There was a force on Earth, an untapped power, that had gone unnoticed for centuries. The question was, what was it? At first, Trezor's discoveries seemed insignificant. Earth's technology was primitive by galactic standards, its people still far from mastering interstellar travel. But as he examined the human race more closely, he began to notice something odd. The humans, despite their wars and division, had an uncanny ability to adapt and survive. Their resilience was unparalleled. Throughout history, they had faced countless challenges, natural disasters, conflicts, even near extinction, and yet they always seemed to bounce back. There was an energy in humanity that no other species had, an energy that was different from anything Trezor had ever encountered in his research. As Earth began to send out more signals into space, Trezor saw something more. It was not just the technological advancements that caught his attention, but the way the humans communicated. Their messages were not simply curious inquiries into the nature of the galaxy, but messages filled with ambition and hope. They were not asking to be saved or protected. They were reaching out, eager to connect, eager to learn. It was as if they believed they had a place in the galaxy, a place that had been denied to them for so long. Trezor decided to investigate further. He was determined to uncover the source of this strange energy. After weeks of research, he stumbled upon a theory that made his heart race with excitement. It was an ancient hypothesis, buried deep within the galactic archives, one that had been dismissed as mere speculation by most scholars. The theory suggested that Earth, like many other worlds, had been seeded by an advanced civilization long before the rise of the Galactic Council. But unlike other worlds, Earth had been left to develop on its own, untouched by outside interference. The humans had been given the freedom to evolve at their own pace, with no external influences until now. This theory suggested that Earth's true power lay not in its technology or resources, but in the humans themselves. The species had been allowed to grow without the constraints of outside control, and now they were on the verge of discovering something far greater than the Council could have ever imagined. The humans were not weak, as the Council had believed. They were on the cusp of unlocking a hidden potential, a power that had been dormant for millennia. And if this potential was unleashed, it could shake the very foundations of the galaxy. Trezor's heart raced as he dug deeper into the archives, finding more clues that pointed to a disturbing truth. The Galactic Council had known about this potential all along, but they had kept it hidden. They had deliberately kept Earth in the dark, preventing the humans from reaching their full potential. The Council had feared what Earth could become if the humans were allowed to evolve freely. If they were allowed to awaken their true power, they could become a force that rivaled even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And that, the Council believed, could not be allowed to happen. As Trezor pieced together the evidence, he realized that the Council's decision to keep Earth isolated was not based on Earth's weakness. It was based on its strength. The humans had been labeled low threat because the Council had feared what they could become. Earth's low status had been a carefully calculated measure to keep them in check, to ensure they never realized their full potential. The more Trezor learned, the more he began to question the Council's motives. If Earth was truly as powerful as the records suggested, then why had they been kept in the dark? What was the real reason behind the Council's fear? The more Trezor uncovered, the more uneasy he became. The knowledge he had gained was dangerous. The truth about Earth's hidden potential had been buried for a reason, and now he was uncovering it. If the rest of the galaxy knew what he had discovered, it could change everything. He knew he had to be careful. One wrong move, and the entire Council could turn against him. But Trezor couldn't ignore what he had found. He had seen the patterns emerging from Earth, and he knew that the time for hiding was over. The humans were beginning to awaken, and it wouldn't be long before they realized the truth about their own potential. The Council had underestimated them for too long, and now it was only a matter of time before the balance of power shifted. The question was, would the humans rise to claim their place in the galaxy? Or would the Council be able to keep them subdued, forever hidden in the shadows? Trezor had his doubts, but one thing was clear. Earth was no longer a low threat. It was something much, much more. The truth was out, and soon, the rest of the galaxy would have to face it. The age of Earth's ignorance was coming to an end, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the truth about Earth's potential began to spread quietly among the Galactic Council's researchers, the realization was starting to settle in. The humans were far more dangerous than they had ever been given credit for. Earth's inhabitants, once dismissed as primitive, were awakening. The long-held myth of Earth's low-threat status was slowly crumbling, and with it, the Council's carefully constructed illusion that they had nothing to fear from the humans. But the deeper question now was, would the humans ever realize their own potential? And if they did, what would the galaxy do then? In the halls of the Galactic Council, discussions were becoming more heated. Some members argued that Earth had simply stumbled into its advances by chance, that the humans were still too divided and fractured to present any real danger. Others, however, began to suspect that Earth was on the verge of something far more dangerous than the Council had realized. They were not yet unified, but that could change. And once Earth discovered the full extent of its power, it might be too late to stop them. The tension was building. There were factions in the Council that wanted to take action before Earth fully realized its potential. And there were those who believed they should simply leave the planet alone, letting things play out naturally. But no one could agree on the best course of action, and the uncertainty only added to the pressure. Meanwhile, on Earth, the first signs of true awakening were beginning to emerge. The humans, unaware of the forces watching them from afar, were slowly but surely uniting in ways that had never been seen before. They had been divided for centuries by wars, ideologies, and borders. But now, a new movement was stirring, a movement that transcended old conflicts and spoke to the common thread that ran through all of humanity: survival, progress, and the desire to reach beyond their world. Scientists, inventors, and dreamers across the planet were beginning to work together, pooling their knowledge and resources. They were reaching out to one another, sharing ideas that had once been guarded, and something extraordinary was happening. Breakthroughs in technology were happening faster than anyone could have anticipated. Machines once thought impossible were being built. Communications between distant nations were becoming more open, and the barriers that once divided the human race were slowly beginning to fall. The humans had not yet unlocked the full scope of their potential, but they were starting to realize they were capable of far more than they had ever believed. They were discovering new ways to harness energy, manipulating materials at the molecular level, and even developing rudimentary methods for space travel. In their ignorance, they were slowly stumbling upon the very knowledge that the Galactic Council had worked so hard to keep hidden. The Council had watched this unfolding development with increasing alarm. They knew that Earth was not the only planet to have been left to develop without interference. But there was something unique about Earth. While other planets had been seeded with great care and watched over by their creators, Earth had been allowed to evolve freely, untouched by the guidance of higher civilizations. The humans had a gift that no one had anticipated: their sheer determination to grow, no matter the obstacles in their path. It was as if Earth's very survival instincts had been building up to this moment, a moment when their potential could no longer be ignored. And then, it happened. The humans launched their first successful space mission, sending a ship into orbit beyond their moon. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but to the humans, it was a monumental achievement. The message was clear. Earth was no longer confined to the limitations of its own atmosphere. It was reaching beyond its borders, preparing to take its first steps into the cosmos. The Council had feared this day, and now it was here. Trazol, the young alien scientist who had uncovered the truth about Earth's potential, watched with a mixture of awe and dread. He had known that this day would come, but now that it had arrived, he found himself questioning everything he had believed. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had reached beyond their own planet, and in doing so, they had taken their first step toward becoming a true galactic power. The questions that had plagued Trazol's mind were now becoming more pressing than ever. What would the humans do next? Would they discover the truth about their own origins? Would they realize that the Council had kept them hidden for so long? And if they did, how would they react? The answer to these questions was unclear, but one thing was certain: Earth was no longer the insignificant, low-threat planet that the Council had once believed it to be. The humans were awakening, and soon they would demand answers. The question now was whether the Council could stop them before they realized just how powerful they had become, or whether they would be forced to face a new and unpredictable force on the galactic stage. As Earth's first space mission returned to the surface, the news spread like wildfire. The world watched in awe as humanity's first interstellar endeavor was celebrated across the planet. What had once been considered impossible was now reality. The humans had taken their first steps into the unknown. They had crossed the threshold, and there was no going back. In the Galactic Council, the decision-making process had become even more fraught. The leaders were divided. Some argued for an immediate intervention, fearful that the humans could soon become a threat to their long-established order. Others believed it was too late. Earth had already begun its ascent, and there was nothing that could be done to stop them. The fear of what was to come loomed large in the council chambers. A new era was dawning, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Trazo knew that the humans were not ready for the truth, but the time was coming when they would have to face it. They were no longer just a backwater planet. They were a force to be reckoned with, and when the humans discovered their true power, the entire galaxy would tremble. The tipping point had arrived. Earth, once dismissed as a low-threat planet, had ignited a chain of events that the Galactic Council could no longer ignore. It was no longer a question of if the humans would become a force to be reckoned with, but when, and what the consequences would be for the galaxy. With their successful foray into space and their rapidly advancing technology, the humans had become a living testament to something that the galaxy had long feared: the power of unrestrained potential. The truth was undeniable now. Earth was not just a backwater planet, and its people were not the primitive species the galaxy had once thought them to be. The question was how the Council would respond. In the heart of the Galactic Council's headquarters, the tension had reached its peak. Councilors from all corners of the galaxy gathered in an emergency session to discuss the implications of Earth's sudden emergence into the galactic stage. The debate was heated, with factions divided over the best course of action. Some urged immediate intervention, advocating for a swift and decisive response to prevent Earth from realizing its full potential. Others, like Trezor, argued that such an action could provoke an unforeseen reaction from the humans. The more the Council pushed to control Earth, the more likely it was that they would awaken even faster. It was a delicate balance, a galaxy-wide game of chess, with Earth as the unknowing pawn. Trezor, still struggling with the weight of the truth he had uncovered, found himself standing in the middle of this growing divide. The more he learned about Earth's potential, the more he began to question the motives of the Galactic Council. His discovery had begun as a curiosity, but now it felt like a ticking time bomb. The humans, with their unpredictable nature and boundless determination, could tip the scales in ways no one had anticipated. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the Council's attempts to control Earth were born from fear. Fear of what humanity could become. Fear of a species with nothing to lose, a species with the ability to rise from the ashes and reshape the galaxy on their own terms. But despite his newfound understanding of Earth's potential, Trezor could not ignore the gravity of the situation. The Council had always maintained a delicate balance of power in the galaxy, and the rise of a new player could send shockwaves through the established order. Earth's emergence as a contender in the galactic arena wasn't just a threat to the Council. It was a threat to everything the galaxy had built. If humans realized their full potential, they could become a rival to even the most powerful species in the galaxy. What would happen then? Could the galaxy withstand the arrival of such a force? Meanwhile, back on Earth, the humans had no idea what was unfolding in the galaxy above them. Their focus was on the stars. The first successful space mission was celebrated as a monumental achievement, but to the humans, it was just the beginning. They were on the verge of something much larger. They had tasted the possibility of interstellar travel, and now there was no turning back. Humanity's gaze turned to the stars, dreaming of worlds beyond their own, unaware that the rest of the galaxy was watching them with bated breath. The humans were reaching out, not just for knowledge, but for connection. They sent their signals into the galaxy, hoping to make contact with other civilizations, believing that they were not alone in the vast expanse of space. Little did they know, the very act of reaching out had already sent ripples throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council had taken notice of their efforts, and soon, the first alien contact would be made, though it would not be the welcoming encounter that the humans hoped for. Trezor, watching the humans with growing concern, knew that the time had come for a decision. The Council could not afford to wait any longer. The balance of power was shifting, and Earth's place in the galaxy was no longer something they could ignore. But the truth was, no one knew how the humans would react to the revelation of their true origins. Would they accept their place in the galaxy, or would they rise to challenge the very forces that had kept them in the dark for so long? As the first message from the humans reached the Council's archives, the decision was made. A small, elite group of Council members was chosen to make contact with Earth, to initiate what would be their first official interaction with the humans. It was a calculated risk, one that could either cement the Council's control over Earth or lead to an all-out conflict. The stakes were high, and the outcome uncertain. Trizo, conflicted by his own discoveries and the knowledge he had gained, volunteered to be part of the team. He knew that the truth about Earth's potential had to be revealed. The humans had a right to know their true history, their connection to the galaxy, and the reasons for the Council's secrecy. But he also understood that revealing this truth could spark a chain of events that neither he nor the Council could control. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was the only way to allow Earth to realize its place in the larger cosmic order. As the ship prepared to leave for Earth, Trizo stood in the quiet chamber, staring out at the stars. He couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's true potential had only just begun to unfold. What if they were not ready for the truth? What if they were not prepared to handle the responsibility that came with such knowledge? Earth was on the brink of a new era, one that could either uplift the galaxy or shatter it into pieces. The journey to Earth would take time, but Trizo couldn't help but wonder. When the truth was revealed, would Earth rise to claim its place among the stars, or would it fall under the weight of its own ambition? The future of the galaxy now lay in the hands of humanity. And whatever choice they made, there was no going back. The consequences of their actions would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries to come.